Hi, welcome to Pages with Sidra here. I bring you the novels behind your favorite manga, manhwa, and manhua, whether by translating or simply reading them for you. Let's dive into the stories that inspire the comics we all love. I got a cheat ability in a different world and become extraordinary even in the real world. Volume 11, Chapter 6, False God. As soon as Gwen-san sensed the invasion of the false god, he immediately snapped his fingers, and we returned to that simple city. What? Oh no. To our surprise, the place was already in a state of destruction. As we stared at the scene in dismay, we saw two rapidly approaching presences. When I turned my gaze in the direction of the presence, I saw Lanil-san and this strange monster violently colliding with each other there. Lanil-san. Yuya-san. Lanil-san noticed us and took advantage of an opening by the monster to deliver a powerful kick, then quickly flew down to us from a distance. Everyone, your return means. Affirmative. We've got the divine authority without problems. More importantly, what on earth is that thing? Master Yuzagi was staring sharply at the figure of the monster that was kicked away by Lanil-san just now. With 6 sharp limbs like a praying mantis's sickle, its round, octopus-like body was covered with various kinds of eyes. When we were startled by its eerie appearance, Gwen-san told us. That's the false god's sentinel, the false soldier. The false soldier. Lanil, is it the only one here? And no, there are other false soldiers and us apostles right there. And D-sama and the others are fighting with the false god. The moment Lanil-san reported this, a tremendous explosion sounded in a distant direction. The shockwave reached here, and I was almost blown away. Lanil, you and your fellows deal with the false soldiers. Yuya and the others, follow me. Gwen-san snapped his fingers again as he gave the order. At that moment, our view switched to the fierce battlefield. What is this? There was, indeed, a hellscape. Help. I don't want to disappear. I don't. The apostles were hit by tremendous shockwaves one after another, and when the haze disappeared, even the apostles' figures were cleanly obliterated. And then, the entity that was probably the source of the shockwave was sitting right in front of us. That is the false god. It was a faceless, gigantic god. It was a translucent humanoid figure walking leisurely through the city of observers. The place where the false god passed through was empty, as if everything had vanished into emptiness. The ground, the sky, everything was being transformed into a dark void. If such a being were to descend upon another world, that world would easily be destroyed. While we were stunned by the tremendous size of this being, there was a person who was trying his best to attack the false god. D-sama. Ugh, Gwen, you made it in time. D-sen gave instructions to the other observers, and while moving at high speed, she fired her divine authority from all directions and attacked the false god. What? Ew. At that moment, the faceless god howled. At that moment, a tremendous shockwave hit us. Heavenly Saint slash. Piercing leg. Destroyer magic. Iris-san and the others immediately reacted, and while activating their newly acquired divine authority with all their strength, they unleashed their skills at the incoming shockwave. Iris-san and the others' skills reached the shockwave, but after a brief struggle, they were blown away by the shockwave. Unbelievable. Iris-san and the others were stunned to see their full power of the skill being blown away, but the shockwave that reached us was weakened by the three's attack, and all of us managed to hold our ground. Wait a minute. How are we supposed to defeat such a thing? Unknown. It's too big. Yudi was right, this false god was too huge. It was far bigger than Alma-san, who could transform into a giant. Who? Is it bigger than me? Alma-san seemed to be bothered by the size of the false god, and as if to compete with it, he turned into a giant and unleashed a supersized breath without hesitation. The breath engulfed the surrounding false soldiers and crushed them all at once. Amazing. HMPH. It's nothing compared to what I'm used to. However, it did not seem to have any effect on the main false god, and despite Alma-san's powerful breath, it did not seem to have done any damage. Tiskus divine authority thing is a pain in the ass to deal with. The earlier breath was apparently an attack mixed with divine authority as well, which was probably why the false soldiers were crushed. I mean, Alma-san, you really could use divine authority. While I was thinking about that, despite the situation, D-san flew to us. Everyone, since you have gathered like this, it seems that you have successfully mastered the divine authority. Yes. That's good to hear. The only thing is, as you can see, it's huge. I didn't expect such a thing to attack our base out of the blue. We can't observe their movements, so there is nothing we can do about it. Gwen-san replied to D-san, who muttered in frustration. That is the false god, isn't it? Yes. That guy is definitely the main body of the false god. Does it have an ego? In my eyes right now, the false god is nothing more than a killing machine that does its utmost to destroy. Well, as a matter of fact, we don't really know much about the false god either. You don't know? After all, they suddenly arise from emptiness and try to destroy us as if their sole mission is to destroy us. What is this terrifying existence? In fact, although observers and apostles were fighting frantically ahead of us, the false god continued to march forward without paying any attention to us at all. So you don't even know how to defeat it? No, the only thing we do know is that the divine authority that you all have mastered will be effective. That is all. Then you don't know if you can defeat it. While everyone's faces were clouded by the thought of dealing with such a messed up entity, D-san shook her head. No, I am sure we can defeat it. Eh? There is no such thing as a perfect being in this world. In fact, even we, the observers, are about to be destroyed by that false god, so it also should not be impossible to destroy the false god. The woman there is right, we can defeat it if we want to. Alma-san, who had been releasing his breath while listening into our conversation, called out to me that way. Alma-san, what do you mean by that? That thing is covered by a mysterious barrier, but there is a huge mass of power in its chest area. Perhaps that is its heart. How do you know that? When D-san asked Alma-san, who had easily discerned what even D-san and her fellows had not been able to discern, Alma-san smiled at her. Even the sage would see it right away. If that is the case, there is no reason why I should not be able to see it. Zenova-san might be able to see through it in an instant. If what Alma-san said is true, then we should attack the mass of power at its heart. Question. But how? At that size, our attack would be insignificant. That's true too. That's exactly what we could do with the help of the Genesis dragon. Iris-san said so, but Alma-san had a bitter look on his face. If I could do that, I would have no trouble at all, but it seems that I have incurred its wrath. I'll act as bait for a while, and you guys can handle it in the meantime. Wait. Alma-san told us that much and then took off into the sky with a mighty leap. At the same time, the false god roared again, and a shockwave hit Alma-san. Moreover, from the shockwave, countless new false soldiers were created and approached Alma-san like ants swarming for food. However, Alma-san managed to avoid these attacks and fought back against the false god. We can't just sit back and watch. We have to attack too. Do you observers have enough power to blow away the massive power that the Genesis dragon was talking about? No, unfortunately, the false soldiers can be dealt with by us without any problem, but we don't have enough power to counter that gigantic false god. Well then, can't we get bigger with the divine authority? If we could become giants too, we would be able to fight on equal terms with the false god. Odie-san immediately suggested, but Gwen-san and the others shook their heads. It's no use. It can only be damaged by attacks that combine divine authority, but if we strengthen ourselves with divine authority, it will somehow become more powerful, as if it's a response to that divine authority. If we were to grow to the same size as it would also become that much more powerful. No way. So, the only one who can deal with the false god is Alma-san. But Alma-san has been the target of the false god and continues to receive waves of attacks. How in the world can we deal with such a situation? If it is Sage-san. Ah. The moment I thought about it, I remembered something. Yes, there is that. I remembered something. Something I had inherited from Sage-san. It was the silver-white giant that fought the Dragoon, the mothership of the Dragonias, during the Space War. I turned my attention to the bracelet. Please lend me your strength. confirming contractor's intention. Activate immediately. NYX translations. The moment an intense light covered the surroundings, a huge white and silver knight stood in front of us. Seeing this figure, D-san and the observers were appalled, but Odi-san and the others who had also fought in space nodded their heads. I see. That golem is the legacy of the sage. It was not made gigantic by divine authority. Are you saying that this was created by the sage? What in the world is the sage exactly? Even the observers, D-san and others, did not seem to be able to keep up with Zenova-san's thought process and power of action. With this, I will slay the false god. Therefore, I ask all of you to deal with the false soldiers. I told everyone, and the next moment, I was moving to the maneuvering space inside the golem. Now this is the second time, but how long do you think I can last this time? Same as last time, 3 minutes is the limit of activity. Short as usual, huh? Rather, it's probably inevitable since my magic power hasn't increased. With such light talk, I made the Omnisword appear in my right hand. Now let's go. I ran toward the false god, and Irisan and the others began to move along with me. We've become stronger too. Irisan held her sword in the upper position to unleash her usual heavenly saint slash. However, the power that the sword was clad in was not only the power of the holy. This is the new power that I have. The aura of the holy and the aura of the divine authority spiral around the sword. The two combined auras extended high into the sky, and Irisan swung it down at once. Sacred slash. An overwhelming torrent of power was released toward the group of false soldiers. However, since there were apostles such as Lanilsan among the group of false soldiers, they would have been engulfed by an ordinary attack. However, since there was a mixture of holy power as well as divine authority, the attack did not cause any damage to the apostles, observers, or other allies and precisely exterminated only the group of false soldiers. Furthermore, the attack reached the main body of the false god, and the false god that was chasing Alma-san was slightly shaken. Perhaps because of such a powerful attack, the false god also turned its attention to Iris-san. Iris is not the only one who has become stronger. Then, Master Uzagi followed Iris-san and jumped out at once into the fierce battle area where the false soldiers were densely concentrated. There, Master Uzagi, with his legs and ears clothed in holy aura and divine authority, reaped the false soldiers. Divine leg. Master Uzagi distracted the false soldiers by using his divine power to move instantaneously and kicked them down one after another. Finally, he reached right in front of the main body of the false god. I know it won't work, but it would be good to give it a try. Saying this, Master Uzagi smiled ferociously, which is unbecoming of a herbivore, and then he unleashed a kick with his holy and divine authority aura concentrated in a single point, right at the body of the false god. Divine flash leg. The aura, which was like a laser, did inflict damage on the body of the false god. However, even so, it only distracted the false god and did not inflict any major wounds. HMPH. It's always troublesome when dealing with such a big figure. Then, me too. Odi-san then produced a massive extremely compressed magic power, which he had also used in the battle against the Dragonia aliens. If I add my divine authority to this destroyer magic, a rainbow aura enveloped the jet black sphere of magic power, and it flew to the point where the false soldiers were most concentrated. Then, blast them all. At that moment, a huge explosion erupted. The three powers of magic, holy power, and divine authority were released all at once, wiping out the surrounding false soldiers. 'Cause I thought, one strike is my limit. The only thing is because of the excessive use of powerful magic power, Odi-san looked sluggish. Question. Knight, can you be as big as you were during the space war? Woof. Roger that. Then we'll all do our best. Seal. Pei. As Yudi called out, Seal's blue flame enveloped Yudi and Knight's bodies. The blue flames were also mixed with a rainbow's aura. Next. Akatsuki. Buhai. Akatsuki transformed into a giant on the spot and became about the same size as Amasan. But Akatsuki had no means of attack, so he concentrated on healing his surroundings. Buhai. When Akatsuki shouted powerfully, the sanctuary skill was activated in the entire surrounding area. The skill healed the wounds and restored the energy of the apostles, who had been nearly extinguished in the battle against the false soldiers, and it even granted them the ability to be holy just like a holy beast to the surrounding area. And then, satisfied, then, night, let's go. Woof. The blue flame from Seal and Akatsuki's holy power also joined forces to annihilate the false soldiers one after the other. Among the false soldiers, some of them were quite huge, although not as big as the false god. But even against such an enemy, Knight did not take a single step back. Grrrr. By using his divine authority, he jumped into the false soldier's chest and sliced through them entirely with his fangs and claws. Yet Knight, who charged in alone, was a good target for the false soldiers, and they took this opportunity to swarm him at once. However, the false soldiers were also a good target for one girl. Aim. Shoot them all at once. Yuri quietly looked at the false soldiers who were swarming around Knight and released an arrow that she drew. Divine rain. It was like a rain of blessings pouring down from the heavens. Countless arrows, strengthened by Yuri's divine authority, shot precisely through the heads of the false soldiers. As the false soldiers fell one after another, Yuri nodded her head. Done. Now no one will get in Yuya's way. Ha ha ha, everyone is getting so much stronger. The false god was also wary of me because I had summoned a huge golem, a legacy of Sage-san. At this point, the main target of the false god was Ama-san, but it was also trying to deal with this huge golem as soon as possible by sending large-sized false soldiers toward me. I was heading toward the false god while cutting them down, but everyone else defeated the false soldiers who stood in my path. I'll decide the rest in one fell swoop. I, who activated my divine authority in this instant when the false soldiers were gone and moved close to the false god. Then, as expected, the huge existence ignored Amasan and changed its attack target to me, probably because of my sudden intrusion into its proximity. Ew. Ka. A translucent shockwave erupted from the body of the false god and attacked me. If I take this in stride, even if it is this golem, I don't know what will happen. That's why. Woo-ah. Magic armor, holy king authority, holy evil creation, and the divine authority. I used all the power I could muster right now to strengthen the golem. And then, a flash. There is nothing that can't be cut. The two had been fighting so fiercely, but now silence reigned around them. Oh. A line ran through the body of the false god. With that line as the center, one half of the false god's body shifted and fell away and then disappeared just like sand. The other half of the body, which was left behind, also disintegrated into particles, as if melting into the atmosphere. As soon as the false god disappeared, the remaining false soldiers disappeared in the same way. This was the very meaning of our victory.
Alright, as we continue, here's a quick note: the epilogue is included in this video. I decided it wasn't necessary to make a separate video for it, so stick around as we wrap everything up together.
The activity limit has been reached. From now on, the summons will be cancelled. After watching the false god disappear, it seemed that the golem had just reached its activity limit and the summoning of the giant soldier was cancelled. Then, we won. Wah! The entire heavenly realm cheered in unison. After that, it was confirmed that the false god had completely disappeared, and once again, cheers echoed through the city of the observers. However, that base of Disan and the others were also destroyed, and on top of that, it was a jet black void with no evidence of restoring after defeating the false god, so it could not be said that complete peace had come to the heavenly realm. According to Disan and others, the broken cityscape could be quickly restored by divine authority, but even divine authority could not do anything about that jet black space. That is because that space is nothingness. The only thing that matters is whether or not the space can be restored to its original state, just as there is no point in giving anything to a state of nothingness. But after defeating the false god in such a way, there is nothing more for us to do in the heavenly realm. It's over. Good work. I was wondering what was going to happen, but it turned out to be a lot more manageable than I thought. That's right. We've got a new power, too. Humo. I'm very happy to have more things to study. Ahaha. After such a spectacular fight, Iris-san and the others were so relaxed that I couldn't help but chuckle. At any rate, this is how the battle with the false god ended. In other words, I have also fulfilled my soul contract with Xenovis-san. With this, there should be no more big trouble. Conviction. When Yuya says so, something probably happens. Yudi-san. Don't say that. I believe that nothing will happen anymore. Well, anyway, I'm sure the fight is over here, so let's go back to our world. I wonder if we should ask Lanil-san to help us again? Can you wait a minute? Oh, D-san. As we were all talking about going home, D-san, who had been giving instructions to the observers and apostles, came in. Behind her, there were other observers as well, including Gwen-san. What's wrong? We apologize for involving you in the problems of our world. And thanks to all of you, we were able to defeat the false god without this world being destroyed. On behalf of this world, I would like to thank you all. Thank you very much. At the same time as D-san bowed her head, the other observers also bowed their heads. Please raise your heads. I'm glad we could be of help to you, too. Thank you so much. When D-san and the others raised their heads, I asked them about something that was suddenly bothering me. Come to think of it, is the false god going to come back? As for that, to be honest, we don't know either. It is the false god who brings everything back to emptiness. Even if we think it has disappeared, it is quite possible that it has gone to some other world. Is that so? In this world, no matter what it is, it cannot be truly and completely erased. It would not be surprising if an extinguished false god resurrected somewhere. I see. So that means that that guy might come back to life again? That's indeed a problem. However, it is unlikely that the false god will be resurrected. But rather than that, I have a proposal for all of you. A proposal? Yes. Why don't you all become observers? Wah. It was a proposal that I had not expected at all, and everyone, including me, was absolutely astonished. No wonder you are surprised. It is impossible for us, the inhabitants of the higher worlds, to offer such to the beings of the lower worlds. That is unless you are a special case like the sage. But we are not as powerful as Sage-san. It is hard to say about that since we don't know how powerful the sage is. However, you all overcame the ordeal and obtained divine authority. This means that you are already qualified as observers. This brings me to this suggestion. If you are willing, I would like you to become observers. I don't know if this is too sudden, but what exactly will happen if I become an observer? As you may have heard from Gwen, you will be freed from many of the desires that exist in the lower worlds, and even the concept of lifespan will disappear, and you will have eternal life. This was exactly the invitation that Xenovis-san, the sage, had received before his death. We all looked at each other in surprise at the sheer scale of the story, but we all seemed to be in agreement. Well, I'm very grateful for the offer, but I'd like to refrain from that. I said this on behalf of the others, and I could sense the turmoil among the observers. Are ridiculous. You're refusing this offer? As was the case with the sage, don't you understand the appeal of this offer? I had no intention of changing my answer to this question. It may indeed be appealing to live forever. But I, too, just want to live a normal life. We don't need eternal life. What's more important is that I have people I care about right now and that I can just live a normal life with them. Well, yeah, I guess. It's not that I'm not interested in eternal life, but I've realized that in this world, I've actually lost my appetite and desire to sleep. I realized that those desires are important. Right. And it's interesting to think about what you can do with the limited amount of life you have. Compared to Iris and the others, I have a long lifespan, but a long lifespan is not always a good thing. Besides, as long as the unknown exists, it will be difficult to take away my thirst for knowledge. Opinion. I am the same as Yura. I like my life as it is now. So I'm fine with the way things are. Woof. Buhai. Pei. I see. When D-san found out that our intention was firm, she accepted our willful response, though she looked disappointed. Just like the sage did, perhaps the lower worlds are more wonderful than this one. Anyway, I understand your intentions. Now, let's send you all back to your original world. Saying this, Disen paused before snapping her fingers. Once again, everyone, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you again someday. Then, Lanil-san rushed over. Please wait. I want to say my farewell, too. Lanil-san. Lanil-san took a deep breath in front of us and opened her mouth. I met Yuya-sen through an unexpected connection at first, but thank you so much for lending us your help like this. Please come visit us again sometime. It's my pleasure. Please come visit us too, Lanil-san. At the moment we gave our final goodbyes, D-san snapped her fingers and the scenery changed. We're back, I guess. When my vision changed, I saw that it was the usual garden of Sage-san's house. The location was the same as when Lanil-san first came to pick us up, but it didn't look as if much time had passed. Phew, it looks like we're really back. Even so, we've done some serious work this time. I'm going to take a break. I think I'll take my leave now. Master Yuzaki and Odi-san said so, and then they just left. And, perhaps as an experiment in divine authority, they both disappeared in an instant. Geez, they are both so impatient. Ahahaha. Yuya. There seems to be some kind of conflict between humans and a bunch of monsters in the Great Devil's Nest. Shouldn't you go and help them? Eh? Iris-san's words made me laugh bitterly, and Almasen suddenly said so. It seems some of the women you know are being attacked. E. I rushed out of the garden and headed for the scene. Then, I saw the soldiers of the Alceria kingdom, including Onsen, there. And then I saw Lexia-san and Luna. Lexia-san. Ah, Yuya-sama. Despite being attacked by a group of goblin elites, Lexia-san turned to me and raised her hand smilingly. Surprised by her, I quickly took out my Ama sword and defeated the goblin elites. Phew, nevertheless, what's the matter with you all? I've actually come to ask a favor of Yuya-sama. A favor? When I tilted my head and wondered what it was, Lexia-sen's eyes lit up, and she said something surprising. I want Yuya-sama to let me and Luna enroll in the school in Yuya-sama's world. And why that it made. The content of the request was so abrupt that it made my eyes widen. In the dark, cold depths of the ground, the groaning voices of the dead resounded there, and the air was thick with the presence of death. The name of this place was the Underworld. It was a place where the souls of all the dead reached. The Underworld existed for each planet and each world, and there existed a certain boundary line that was never crossed. Because of these boundaries, the order of the Underworld was maintained, and the inhabitants of Hell were unable to escape from their respective worlds. In one such underworld, a soul flowed into the Underworld. It was the soul of the false god who was killed by Yuya. It was not strange for a soul to flow into the Underworld, but the problem was that the power contained within this soul was extraordinary. The soul, shimmering translucently, annihilated everything around the underworld, and furthermore, the nefarious deceased began to be activated by the power released from the soul. And the most important effect was that the boundaries of the underworld disappeared, and the underworlds of each world became interconnected. Strange souls are pouring in. While the surroundings are buzzing, a voice echoes through the underworld. The voice belonged to an old man wearing a ragged robe. How can't you find peace even after death? The owner of the voice, somewhat mournful, let out a sigh again and stared off into the distance. And then, but I look forward to seeing him again. The old man muttered and laughed. Thank you for watching Pages with Sidra. I hope you enjoyed this chapter of I got a cheat ability in a different world, and became extraordinary even in the real world. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more volumes and novels. Let's keep exploring these amazing stories together. See you in the next one.